So they're testing live events on Netflix just to see if anyone's remotely interested in actually watching live television
I'm
on a
I'm
Netflix
I'm
platform.
I'm interested in not watching it on Netflix. So thanks for the link, bro. Peace.
Adios.
If
Go
I come
culture
back,
see.
if I come back, it'll be after you end and to
You're
talk
just gonna
about.
keep using this link and it'll just like stick around.
Yeah, I'll just be like, hey,
Well, like I
one more,
said,
one more
the
fight.
you still got the co-main event, which hasn't even started yet. They're interviewing the last guy, so you got the co-main event, which that'll probably take another 50 minutes to get through that whole thing, and then there's probably going to be some like 40-minute delay between the entrances to them actually getting to this whole fight. So yeah, you got a long while to
Yeah, this barbacoa guy, he throwed a lot of punches. Apparently, if you throw the
Barbacoa. I love barbacoa.
yeah, well, he throwed a lot of punches and he ended up winning because he throwed a lot of punches and landed about 35% of them.
yeah. But then again, it's boxing. It's also fixed too. So I mean, it's glorified pro wrestling.
Well, yeah, I'm going to tell you right now. You know, Tyson gave this kid a wake up call with that little love tap he got. He's this kid can end up on a stretcher, and his dad will be proud of him getting his ass beat. Apparently, so whatever.
Yeah, like I said, I'm sticking with Paul TKO
Seriously,
round 7.
I'm telling you right now, this kid's gonna be so slapped around. His children and grandchildren will feel it.
We are broadcasting, right?
Yeah, we are live.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I'm gonna
I
leave
didn't
now.
either, so that's cool. Okay,
Movie time. Hello, we're here. We're live. It's Friday night, and apparently everyone's watching a YouTuber beat up a washed-up boxer tonight. So we'll go ahead and be a perfect night to just go ahead and talk about Red One. So in case you guys hadn't know, I've been telling people for the last couple of weeks, but yeah, this show's winding down because we're gonna be retiring this show after episode 100. But in the course of that, we still have at least 5 more movies to review between now and when the show actually ends. So how you guys feeling about that? We'll start with Mr. Rob Motto. How you doing that, Rob?
I'm doing pretty good. I wish I had more to expound upon that, but I'm incredibly tired. But yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun. I just, I like any excuse to talk about movies, review movies, make fun of them. So it's whatever. I'll be here for whatever future iterations that covers. But yeah, it's been fun, and I'm excited for what's next. Question mark.
Yeah, Rick, how's it going there?
It's going well, but I am saddened by this this devastating news, and I have had people at work ask me about you when I mentioned the movies that you're going to have us review. one of my coworkers asked, "Does he hate you? I mean, does he literally hate you that he makes you watch all of these awful things?" But
I don't like you, but I don't know if it's a strong word.
More of an indifference, you know.
But yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I'm a little run down too. I actually took a nap for the first time in years. So yeah, other than that, doing pretty good. We need to talk about the movie that is not Miracle on 45th Street.
Yeah, it is certainly not. Well, I mean, like I said, we should
Let's hope
probably
it
just
actually
go ahead
called it that
and
way.
get into this whole story before the fight starts. Like I said, I told Culture Casino before he got it because apparently he thought we were streaming the fight, and I don't know where he heard me say that I was streaming that fight because I definitely did not say that any course in this entire week. But yeah, that thing's probably not going to start for another hour and a half at this point. So it's like, yeah, you can save your time there. But we
Well,
do have some people.
in fairness, I can understand why he thought that because this movie does have a lot of fights in it. It has it has some slaps too. So
We'll get to this one here, but well, let's talk about the movie of the night. And this is Red One. So I think we should start off kind of hot here because I want to say this kind of leading off. This is going to sound like my review tonight's going to sound like the movie's worse than it actually is. It isn't, but there's a lot of things to complain about this film, if that makes any kind of sense whatsoever. So, how do we get to another Christmas film starring The Rock, and how did we get to a $250 million production? How this whole thing happen? So, Hiram Garcia at $7 Production. If you guys don't know $7 Production, that is The Rock's production company. He conceived the idea for this movie. He was the brain trust. Now, if you don't know who Hiram Garcia is, that is the brother of The Rock's ex-wife. So The Rock's ex-brother-in-law is the person who crafted the idea for this film, and somehow they used The Rock's star power to get $250 million from Amazon to produce this movie. Now, it was originally supposed to be $200 million, but The Rock himself is responsible for at least $100 million of this film's budget. And here's what I mean by this. Because he's a producer of the film and because he's the main star, they ended up paying him $50 million for his involvement in the movie. So The Rock is getting a $50 million paycheck from this movie just from the production side of things alone. On top of that, due to some very questionable behavior over the last couple of years, which involves him showing up several hours late for productions, no showing filming days altogether, and doing a whole bunch of delays. They ended up having to reshoot a lot of the movie, delay a lot of the film, and it cost them an additional $50 million. So the actual set budget was $200. Thanks to The Rock, it got bumped up to $250 million, and he's single-handedly responsible for at least $100 million of the production altogether. And then this is how we ended up getting this movie. So I mean, go ahead and just start with The Rock here just for a second. And Rob, I'll shoot this question with you because I'm going to swing this over to Chris Evans here in a second. The Rock has drawn the ire of a lot of people over the last couple of years. His image has absolutely taken a beating. The whole Joe Biden endorsement a few years ago certainly didn't help things. Then you had the Hawaii disaster. Then you had the disaster about Black Adam where people turned on him. Now there's more and more reports are being reported, and let's be honest, they're being allowed to report on this now that, The Rock's behavior behind the scenes isn't quite as professional as he makes it seem to be. It seems like it's open season on The Rock on a lot of aspects, but his drawing power has completely diminished here, but he's still getting these massive paydays. Is he even worth the massive paydays that he's getting anymore at this point? What is your take on The Rock's drawing power in Hollywood as it stands right now?
I think that in retrospect, we have to appreciate, really, it's amazing that he's been able to generate anything, because I guess enough of his movies have made money where they are interested in keep putting him and featuring him as a star for vehicles, because I'll be honest with you, it's a forgettable resume of disaster movies and action comedies and,
some family
putting
efforts.
himself, being a masculine figure, putting himself in being a father to a little girl or whatever, like what was it, like the Tooth Fairy
Tooth Fairy.
or something, or escape from Witch Mountain, or just
Race to Witch Mountain.
yeah, I don't know. I can't help, I just
You actually remember the names of these movies?
I've seen the meme where he's saying something to the kid in the back. That's literally it. That's my only reference point. But basically, he has this entire resume of movies that really just are mediocre to like maybe one or two being slightly above average, but I think that's reaching. So that's kind of who The Rock is. We're not going to get anything out of him. They're not going to develop a script for him at any point. I know he's working with Benny Safdie on that MMA movie. Look, Benny Safdie's a really talented filmmaker. We'll see what happens. You know what I mean? But I really have. I mean, I think we know what The Rock is at this point. So, and watching this movie today was kind of further evidence of that. I actually had the thought for the first time. I was like, Chris Evans is not a good actor. Like, I maybe that was true. It's always been true, but I guess I gave him something of a free pass because he used to do those like indie movies that were, a little bit more focused on.
I will give Chris Evans this. He is great at play. Is somebody else here in feedback with me, or
a little bit? I heard a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know where that's coming from, but I'll give Chris Evans this. He is great at playing Captain America, and he is not very great at playing literally anything else. So he has that on his resume. That's about it.
Yeah, and so it's I'll give him. I kind of gave him, but I was watching him today, and I was just thinking, especially since he's been doing like the Marvel stuff, it's like it's diminishing returns, and it's like he'll play the bad guy in the Gray Man, where he like winks at the camera half a dozen times, and you know what I mean. And it's like, okay, there's nothing good here. Whereas at least, and maybe the opportunities just aren't there for him, but at least his resume seemed a little bit more varied before. And so, yeah, with Dwayne The Rock Johnson, yeah, I don't, he is what he is. I'm not going to really expect anything more than that. So, and this movie and this performance kind of fit that to a T.
Rick, what's your take on just The Rock as an actor and as a draw in Hollywood? Like, where do you think he stands at this point in time?
I don't know if he's ever been a draw. I don't think. I mean, he's kind of lucked out in certain films, but I mean, what has he been attached to? Some of the Fast and Furious films, Moana. I think there was Pain and Gain. Was that the only one that?
Yeah, he was in that one.
Yeah, it seems to be well liked critically, but he's more of a persona that just kind of wandered into a film, but nothing there that says that people are going to go and watch him because he's in the film. And all stars fade, and he's been fading. We see this in the returns for this movie as compared to the budget, but he's always got Moana too, so there's that.
I mean, so here's kind of how The Rock's career has gone up to this point. Because remember, he was a big star in WWF back in the late '90s. That's where he got his break. Then he decided he was going to do movies in like the early mid 2000s. He was in a couple of movies where he was like The Rundown and Walking Tall. I mean, they weren't like big budget films, but it basically showed that he had something going in Hollywood. And then, none of those films really broke out. He was in films like The Game Plan and Race to Wizard Mountain. So it was kind of mediocre at that point. Then all of a sudden, Rock, over the course of the next few years, started loading up on certain substances that we'll call HGH, and then the next thing you know, he's in these Fast and Furious movies, and that was kind of what shot his career, the superstardom again, because he was with the Fast and Furious with Vin Diesel, even though they were feuding in front of the camera or behind the camera at the time period. But Fast and Furious movies broke out to him being in games like G.I. Joe, him being in Hercules. Like I said, these are all mediocre movies, but this is kind of how it all came play. Then at the mid 2010s, they's like, okay, let's see what The Rock can do as a leading man. So they gave him like San Andreas, they gave him Central Intelligence, they gave him Baywatch, Rampage, Skyscraper. And you look at those films, I mean, not only were none of those films really that good, the box office receipts was only roughly like around $400 million for his draw. So if you put him in something that isn't a already established franchise, and it's like, okay, The Rock starring in this, you're only really going to get about $400 million back worldwide. So I don't know why anyone thought that, oh yeah, let's make this budget $250 million, right? Because hell, if let's put it to you this way, if Rampage was made for like 120 million, it made 428. Why would you think going more than what Rampage did was a smart idea, given that not only that's his ceiling, but his ceiling has been in decline over the last several years now?
Well, maybe it was a question of expectation because they thought, oh, it's The Rock and it's Captain America and it's a Christmas movie, so you're going to appeal to families and you're going to appeal to, like, I guess, action because you do have some action sequences here. So they thought they were going to get the best of all worlds with this movie. And it was more a question of expectation than actual execution.
But they're trying to hit so many marks at the same time. This is what the
Yeah.
whole movie felt like, is like, oh, well, we're going to get the people who like Marvel movies and the CGI action green screen extravaganza thing. And, oh, we're going to have, but we're also going to sprinkle in these quiet sort of introspective moments about what Christmas is all about. But we're going to have shit-libbed humor where they swear all the time, even though it's supposed to be for families. And so, I mean, it's just like they're just trying so hard to hit every possible demographic in terms of the moviegoer, the movie viewer, and it just is too obvious. It's not a consistent enough mixture of humor and drama. It's unbalanced and it's awkward because of it.
So and here's we'll talk kind of about where The Rock goes from this after the fact, but there's another guy we need to talk about here too, and that's Chris Evans, because Chris Evans, over the course of, let's say, the last, honestly, ever since the whole Avengers thing ended with him, you look back the last 5 years, his career really hasn't taken off either. Now, you can be fair in saying that none of the Avengers cast career has taken off outside of them just being a part of the MCU. So outside of that, as longest running soap opera like series, is like they don't really have much else going on for him here. But I mean, he's been in some really bad stuff over the last couple of years. I mean, if you recall, last year he was in what was it? Ghosted with Anna de Armas. That was just not a good movie, like, at all. He was in Lightyear, that infamously bombed. Did terribly there during that time period. He's had cameos in a couple of movies like Free Guy and The Gray Man, Pain Hustler, stuff like that. And then the only other movie I could think that he was sort of a standout in was Knives Out, but even then he was basically just playing like a dick, right? So he's another guy who, I'm pretty sure he got paid a lot of money to be in this film because, he is Captain America. But at the end of the day, it's like he really doesn't have anything going for him either. He may be even in a worse spot than The Rock is at this point. And Rob, you said it earlier. You watched this film and you've come to the realization that, yeah, this guy really can't act. And it's like, yeah, I mean, they don't. He's not in anything that requires him to like truly act. The only thing that he gets into character for is basically the Captain America movies, right? But outside of that, he's basically just playing swarmy douchebag number 5, and he's completely okay with playing that role. What's your take on Chris Evans as an actor and his prospects?
It's almost like he's competing with Ryan Reynolds and Ryan Gosling right now, where like they're all doing the same thing, where it's like handsome, smarmy, sarcastic, charming. I mean, it's like these like platitude qualities of a character, of a leading man, but never a fully formed, fleshed out character. And and it's fine because all three of those people are movie stars in a sense. It's more about their image. It's more about them playing, the sort of like star. It's the star appeal of them versus a fully fleshed out character. Anyway, it's just that none of the movies are good, and therefore none of them have characters to really, to run with. So I don't know. Chris Evans. He seems like, out of the three of them, seems like the least in terms of box office draw. So yeah, I don't know, but maybe something will come along where he'll get an Oscar or something. But I don't know. He's kind of like a non-starter in terms of a conversation where it's like, yeah, his best days were probably as the MCU was kicking off or like halfway into it. But his career has stagnated pretty quickly, honestly.
Well, they've tried to make him into a star. We have to remember he was in the Fantastic Four. That's when they were, really trying to get him to be like a top tier name. Not even so much an actor, but a star, because there is a difference between an actor and a star. And he certainly has tried, but it's kind of sad that a lot of the movies that I remember Chris Evans in have not been particularly great. There was one called "What's Your Number," which was, I thought, just absolutely horrendous. There was Snowpiercer that seemed to be very popular among certain people, but I'm trying to think. There was a movie called Gifted, which I never did see, and people were trying to tell me, yes, this is a developing talent, but what really can we point to in Chris Evans's filmography that will say that he's not playing anything different? I mean, Ryan Reynolds has that problem too, where he plays pretty much the same character. And I'll give Gosling at least some credit in that he does try to be a little more avant-garde in his roles. But with Chris Evans, what proof do we have that he has opened a film, or that he's willing, able to stand like toe to toe with someone who has a better acting career? I mean, I'm trying to think of someone around his age that is like actor, like we think, oh, this is an actor. Yeah, I mean, I don't see him being a great actor. He's just a personality.
I don't know if you guys saw Pain Hustlers with Emily Blunt last year, that Netflix movie about the prescription drug. Yeah, I mean, for completely forgettable movie, he is terrible in it. And it's like he got a paycheck for like $5 million, $10 million to do a bad, and he is from Boston, I think, but do a bad Boston accent and act like a tough guy, like Casey Affleck, Ben Affleck.
And the sad part is that
So
Evans
bad.
is actually from Boston,
Right.
Which is even worse.
But like you should be like at least somewhat adequate at playing this type of character, and it's not believable at all. That's a fucking problem, dude.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the actual plot of this movie, because there isn't much to talk about from that aspect of this film. The movie is very, very straightforward. Santa Claus. Well, let me dial back just a little bit. Here's the setup of the movie. The North Pole is basically ice Wakanda, right? It looks like there's this whole secluded universe somewhere in the ice that's just magically hidden from the rest of the world, and it looks exactly like Wakanda at night, except for there's Christmas lights and snow flurries all over the place. The North Pole is run like the Pentagon, because Santa is like this gray feeder. He's basically the president, right? It's like we have to ensure that we know where he is at all times, especially around Christmas, because now he's going to do his magical run of hitting up 7 billion people in one night. And then in the course of this, he ends up getting kidnapped because someone, being Chris Evans, happened to track him in the North Pole and give his location to another individual, another entity. They don't know exactly who took him, but they're looking for him. And now Chris Evans and The Rock, who plays the bodyguard / elf of Santa Claus, must team together in order to figure out where old Saint Nick is before Christmas comes. And Christmas is quite literally canceled because there's no Santa Claus around here. So there's a lot of things to pick up. I mean, honestly, I'm just being completely straight with you. That is the plot of this movie. There isn't much else to go off here. Like, if you're expecting some kind of
no, I disagree. I disagree.
Okay, cool.
Because remember, we have to have that heartwarming father-son bonding.
Oh yeah, see, that was so insignificant I didn't even include it. So remember when they were in the car, he was like, "Oh no, you can't commit crimes like that. You got to commit crimes like this, like I would do it." It's like, okay.
You could have left halfway through the movie and to see where that movie was going with the whole The Rock is disappointed in humanity, talking about how people are on the fucking naughty list. More people are on the naughty list than it's so idiotic, by the way. And we just had the election, so it's like, okay, this feels incredibly heavy-handed right now. And then Chris Evans is a degenerate gambler, which of course they do nothing to support this story element, except for one fucking scene where a guy gets knocked out in a boxing ring, which is of course relevant tonight. And it's like, oh, and there's, you know, he's supposed to see that he, you know, Chris Evans can be a good father and like not be a piece of shit, and that restores his faith. And it's like, okay, I get it. I can leave now. You know what I mean? And so it's fine, but it's the story beats here are so obvious and predictable, and then it's just a bunch of fucking CGI bullshit, and there's very little here to chew on. And some reading reviews like, oh, it's a good popcorn. No, it's not.
No,
It's
it's
not
not.
even a good popcorn
No, it's
movie.
not.
So
Well,
you know,
it's good to throw popcorn at the screen at.
Yeah, if you one of those psychopaths who you know throw popcorn and soda at the screen, like, not that we would know anyone who would do something like that, but you know,
I've heard rumors.
why would you ruin good popcorn and soda? I don't understand that.
Yeah, what does Sprite have to do with this? What they do to you? So here's the big thing. You know, this movie is kind of marketed as if somehow it's kind of like a family film in a lot of aspects, or at least kind of like, you know, something that you can take everyone to go see. Then you watch this movie, it's like, this is not a movie that I would take with my family at all, especially like younger kids. I mean, obviously, in case you didn't know, there's a lot of language in this film, so that's definitely going to be a big problem here for, you know, people looking for time with the kids, the time with the family in general. There really is no family message in here. Towards the end, you get something. We'll cover that here in a second as well. Um, I was kind of surprised that we can kind of isolate this here in a little bit. But there's a lot of paganism in this film, and especially like pagan horror aspects that are just sprinkled all within this movie too. So it's like a lot of aspects is more horror than it is actual Christmas. Like, if you're thinking that somehow this is like Tim Allen's The Santa Claus, you have gone to the complete wrong movie whatsoever. Rob, what's kind of your take on what Rick always says, the target audience of this film? Because I'm thinking to myself watching this, it's like, who's actually going to like leave the house to watch this movie? Because it's like, this really doesn't have anyone, a demographic that it appeals to. It just doesn't know like what this film wants to be.
Yeah, I mean, I at certain parts I definitely felt like it was almost reminiscent of like a Ghostbusters movie, because you have like ghosts and mythological beings and supernatural powers, and you know, Kiernan Shipka is this crazy weird lady who wants to punish the
She's the Christmas
naughty.
witch.
I just don't understand anyway. So yeah, I mean, I just looked at it more again like that thing where they're just trying to hit all these different things, where it's like, you know, you have the family aspect in terms of like these, you know, Chris Evans' character trying to do the right thing for his kid, and you know, Dwayne the Rock Johnson wants to retire and doesn't believe in the spirit of Christmas anymore, and you know, like I get it. It's like this whole journey to sort of like figure that out, and yeah, there's just a lot of, I don't know, CGI, you know, action scenes, and you know, I don't know, monsters, and you know, foes to defeat, and it's just a lot of empty distraction ultimately. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I wasn't really looking for the, you know, the pagan symbols or anything like that, but certainly like Krampus, and you know, you're dealing with
Well,
like
Krampus and then the
Santa's
witch, like
brother,
these are all like, you know, pagan folklore.
right?
Yeah. Rick, what's kind of your thoughts on like, who is this movie supposed to be for?
I think they really were pushing it as kind of more of a family film with some action bits and some comedy bits, because I guess Chris Evans and Dwayne Johnson are supposed to be, you know, like Abbott and Costello or something. I don't know.
Opposites, you know.
Yeah. But the language I thought was odd, and I thought sometimes some of the visuals might be a little too much for younger kids. But really, I just felt that it was just going nowhere. Like, it was just setting up things, and it just didn't land anywhere. Like when they go to Aruba. And by the way, the people next to me started saying Aruba, Jamaica. Ooh, they literally were singing that as the movie was going on. You got what's his name? Nick Kroll. He's
Yeah.
just there, and then we forget about him. Like, he's useless. Then we go to Krampus, and again, it takes up a long time, and it leads us to no real payoff. So, like, just going here, there, and there's no point to any of it. Now, I think they did try to put in like a more family type thing uh, in the beginning when Santa's there with the kids, but then they put in that random, I guess, influencer type thing. I was like, what is this? Then they tried to do that at the end when they
Yeah.
had the kids, when they had uh, the Dwayne Johnson sees the young Jack finally, and so isn't that touching and beautiful? But by then it was like, really, who cares? Just kind of let the movie go. And again, this is something that, and I've heard this a lot, and I agree with it. This is something that you should have had on streaming, like on
Yep.
Netflix, on Peacock. There's no reason to have this, and not at
Well,
$250 million.
yeah. So this was Amazon, and so this is quite honestly an Amazon Prime movie, like at best. Like this is not a theatrical release film. Um, so kind of getting into more of the plot of this film here is that Chris Evans plays a, what does they call him, a level 4 naughty lister? Is that what they were calling him throughout the course of this film?
Yes,
Right.
yes,
So the whole point of Chris Evans' character is for him to kind of like react to the ridiculousness of the premise of the movie, where it's like, oh, we have these talking polar bears and like the elves and the trolls and all this stuff. It's like all the mythical creatures are real, and it's just he's put in this position where that his only reaction is just to like yell like holy shit and trip over chairs and stuff like that, are things that random things are like attacking him. He's supposed to be the representation of like the audience's reaction to everything that's going on. My only problem is that you guys assume that these people are way more invested in this film than you actually think, and I just thought there's a huge mismatch with his character. Then you have the Rock's character, which the only semblance of kind of a character arc that he has is, like you said, he's gonna retire. He was supposed to retire because more people are growing on the naughty list and he can't handle it anymore, and the joy of Christmas is all washed away. But this one juvenile delinquent is going to somehow change his views on Christmas and the holidays, even though, like you said, they're supposed to be doing this for like the kids, right? It's not, the whole concept is like to spread joy to the children, but he that doesn't hold him. But showing what one guy somehow realizing what a dirtbag he is and trying to be a little less of a dirtbag, that's all it takes for him to come back around to yeah, okay, the Christmas for all here. J.K. Simmons is completely wasted in the film, even though he's playing the character of Santa. He has like one scene, let's say one decent scene where like him and The Rock are like lifting weights and they're kind of like having like a man-to-man talk, and I thought that was set up pretty well. But then after that, he virtually disappears from the movie. You don't really see him again for a while here. I want to talk about kind of the minor characters. I don't even know how to pronounce this woman's name, but it's was it Kieran Shipka, which I don't know.
Yeah, she's
I
had
don't know.
a good year because she was in Long Legs in that one scene where she's being interviewed by the FBI agent. She also
Mhm.
dies in Twisters in the first 10 minutes.
That's literally the only thing that I
Oh.
know her from. It's like, oh yeah, she's the girl who died in like the first 5 minutes of Twisters.
She's
And then
Right.
apparently,
daughter in Mad Men. That's why I know who she is. But that's
Yeah.
it. That's literally it.
I don't know who she
Oh,
is.
she was also Sabrina in that Netflix series, which
yeah,
you
the
recommend
Netflix
listening to demonic.
Teenage Witch. Yeah, so she's in the movie, and like I said, she plays the character of, let's say, Garea or something like that. Which is,
Grilla, the Christmas witch.
yes, the Christmas witch, which comes from Icelandic pagan folklore. So there's a couple of
And how do we know that?
oh, we're supposed to, I guess, like I said, they introduce these characters as if somehow like we know exactly like who they are, and this is kind of what I mean in the sense that it's a little bit subversive, because obviously people are going here expecting, oh, it's going to be a movie about Santa Claus and elves and Christmas cheer and all that stuff, and then that they don't show, it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna hype up this character of Krampus, which, if you guys know the character of Krampus, I think that comes from like some other pagan country about, oh, instead of a person who delivers Christmas cheer, this person delivers Christmas punishment. He basically looks like Satan, and he goes around and he's all about mischief and punishment, and oh, but he's cool, right? There's been a number of movies
And
that
they're
we've done with
brothers.
him over the last 10 years, and they're brothers. They just so happen to be brothers as well. And what's
You couldn't
the
get
best
Fred
way this
Claus.
Mhm.
You couldn't get Fred Claus to be the.
But it's weird because it's like the real focus on the story isn't really on the Santa Claus character, even though he's the central figure. The real focus is on all these other characters because we're following kind of the evil deeds of this witch lady who only appears sporadically throughout the movie, and then we take a weird detour with Krampus when there was really no reason to take that detour because it ultimately didn't come to anything. Yes, he comes back towards the end, but I mean, there was really no reconciliation or any kind of like acknowledgement of a main conflict here. It feels like a movie that was, if I'm being completely blunt here, it feels like somebody's family member pitched this movie and then didn't really flesh out any of the details of the movie, but it got greenlit anyway. So they were trying to like essentially make it up as they went along. And that's why so much of this film felt just disjointed to the point where I was just kind of sitting there. It's like it's not bad to like I really really hate this movie and I can't stand it, but I'm just puzzled like one way or another about all the creative decisions that went into this film. I just feel like it was one bad decision after another. Is that kind of what you felt watching this movie, Rob?
The thing that came up in terms of what what it was using to build its world, and you know all the different story elements, it felt a little bit like the Nightmare on Elm Street, or not Nightmare on Elm Street, Jesus Christ, Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah, because it was incorporating horror and Halloween elements with Christmas, and like even had the headless horseman in this big special effect thing where he's freaking out. Chris Evans is freaking out and stuff, and kind of what you were talking about, how he's supposed to be the audience, like and just like it's almost like a haunted house of attractions. This is the exact kind of movie, by the way, that what I think of when Scorsese says it's a theme park ride. It's it's just like these.
This was like a
series
bad
of
theme
distractions
park ride.
Instead of building character and story and having a satisfying character arc. And so, yeah, it's a disjointed kind of mess. And it just never really decides on a direction. It's kind of just, it's joking all along the way while it's like moving from place to place, and none of it has very much meaning to it. Even it had that same problem that Deadpool 3 did, except I'm sure Deadpool 3 will be much more successful. But it's like it wants to have those sort of quiet, dramatic moments that are meaningful to the character, and it's completely upended by dick and fart jokes. You know what I mean? And not that this has that necessarily, but it's just bad humor, bad comedy. So I just think this is a poorly executed idea. Not to mention the idea itself is never fully fleshed out. And I think that's pretty obvious with, if they're not plot holes, it's just story elements that never get resolved. So
Yeah.
Rick, let me ask you this just real quick. I mean, has our entire idea of Hollywood just been one big lie? Because I just think to myself, we were always told that the Hollywood process was somebody pitches an idea for a story. They sit down in a room, they kind of flesh it out. There's like storyboards. They kind of be like, okay, well then this character is going to interact with this character. Then somebody in the room goes, well, yeah, but what about this and that? Then they end up like fixing the whole thing to the point where by the time the whole meeting and the pitch is over, they kind of have a fluid idea of like where they're going and how the character's supposed to look and be set up, and this whole thing. It just feels like, especially over the last few years, I know COVID may have had a little to do with it, but it just seems like an industry problem. It just feels like we're just half-assing these films now. Like there's really just no effort behind the camera or being written on paper or just anything anymore. People are just, maybe because of the rise of, like I said, Amazon, Netflix, and all these streaming services, that we're just rushing out these dog turd movies just for the sake of, hey, we need content. Whether it's good or not, just get us some content to justify people paying $15 a month for our streaming service. And this just feels like a perfect example of that. Would you agree?
Yeah, this does feel like a streaming film, and I think that's been the common comment on a lot of the things that I've been reading. I think what it is that people are not pitching like actual stories and going through the storyboards and the script rewrites like they did in the past, when it was considered more of a factory where like you had your star, you put them in a film, you had a writer, you had a director, you assigned them, and then they did the work. Here you're pitching concepts and you just kind of put things around it. Here's a concept: Santa gets abducted. Who done it? And now we're gonna find someone who is like kind of a not a slacker, but kind of a wastrel, and he's going to join forces with this very stern-looking elf, who's obviously a gigantic man, and hijinks are going to ensue. And they don't, because again, you put in things that don't add up to anything. You go to Aruba and he gets iced. I have to admit, I thought that was a pun. It said, don't let him get iced. And I said, oh, okay, I guess it's a pun. And then we probably forget about him because they say, oh, well, it'll take days to defrost him. So, oh, okay, let's move on to something else. You go to Krampus, and again, he's just there. It feels very long, and it doesn't add anything really because, like, maybe just a little detail. It just kind of goes along. And I'll say this for J.K. Simmons. He must have had a great time because for most of the movie, he looks like he's asleep. That was most of his performance, just lying there, getting the energy
He was
drink
only
out.
in this movie so that he could show out, how well he could still work out in his 60s. That was really the whole point. This is basically a vanity
No, but
project that they paid him a lot
I
of
just
money.
yeah,
You
I
mentioned
just
that,
said
though,
that. I
because
sat
there's a
there.
photo shoot of him working out because he was joining the DCU, and it turned out he was like Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but no, I mean, for most of the movie, he's in this big ball getting the energy sucked out of him so that Grilla can create those snow globes, and he's just like this, just lying there. And I'm thinking, you're getting paid to look like you're asleep. That
You know
is
what,
an incredible job.
what's great is he's an Oscar winner, so he
Yeah,
probably is getting paid even more to not do anything. It's
Yeah.
like, even if it's like 5 million, it'd still be more than if he hadn't won an Oscar. So
yeah.
funny.
And then I thought, I mean, I liked Bonnie Hunt, and it's like, oh, she's here, and
Yeah.
she's really not doing much. But apparently, her name. See, that's the thing that confused me, and I don't know if you guys caught this. I Is her name Partridge or is that her code name? Because Red One is Santa's code name.
Yeah, that was her code name in the
Okay,
movie.
because
Don't ask
I
They
questions.
had they didn't want to be, too on the nose by calling her Mrs. Claus.
well, no, I think they called her Mrs. Claus, and really her actual name is Merry Christmas. So I want everyone to know that that is her actual maiden name, Merry Christmas. But point being, as like Partridge, it's like the partridge in a pear tree. Why does she need a code name? Who would want to kidnap Santa? I mean, I know why Gorilla. They tell you later, but when they say, "Oh, it's a code green," the code green, and he's chasing them around, Christmas Wakanda, I
Hmm.
was thinking, has he been kidnapped before? Or have there been threats to Santa's life? I was like, why do we need a code green? Like, what who's gonna go
Like I
after
said,
Santa
I
Claus?
love how the whole setup of, the North Pole is that Santa is basically the president and everything else is the Pentagon. So we have to know where POTUS is at all times, and in case something bad happens, like lock everything down. Which is, I don't even think that they went the extra mile to kind of set up this universe, because like when they first show up to like the North Pole, like I said, it looks like Wakanda, but remember, it's all blue screen, and then it looks more exciting than it really is. And then we don't actually spend enough time at the North Pole to kind of like explore this universe in any meaningful way. Because the second that we're there in the North Pole, we immediately pull away from the North Pole because we got to go to Aruba because that's where our enemy is. It's like,
Although it is interesting though that Santa was actually safer on the streets of Philadelphia than he was on the North Pole.
yeah, which is just a joke.
I
Go
just I
ahead.
just wanted to say real quick. I mean, the biggest problem with this movie is that it's like it almost takes seriously this ridiculous premise where it's like the audience knows it's ridiculous, it's stupid and silly to believe in Santa Claus. That's almost the premise because
Hmm.
that's where the comedy is supposed to be derived from. That, it's ELF, not elf, like all this dumb shit, all this sort of like very shallow world building.
All this
where-
hint, hint, wink, wink stuff.
Right. And that's supposed to do the heavy lifting while like, that's where the humor is supposed to come from. And it's completely dead on arrival. That's really the painful thing about this movie. It's like, oh, this is the movie. Like it's just this dumb kind of like obvious ham-fisted kind of comedy. And again, it undercuts the meaning it's supposed to derive throughout the whole thing, which is, again, Christmas is a special time. It's magical. It's for the kids. It's for joy. All this stuff, and it's because the starting point is, haha, Santa's not real. This is stupid.
Yeah, I mean, you get that
It
up
doesn't
at the
work.
beginning. You get that at the beginning when Jack discovers all the gifts and shows all his cousins where all the gifts are.
So this film was written by Chris Morgan. If you don't know who Chris Morgan is, he wrote the last 6 Fast and Furious movies. So if you feel any kind of comparison to this in any of the Fast and Furious movies you've seen over the last 15 years, there's probably a reason to that. And then the director of this movie is Chris
Jake.
Cashin. Sorry,
No,
Jake.
Jake Kasdan.
Yeah, Jake Cashin, who's basically another one of Rock's buddies. He did the last 2
Nepo
Jumanji
baby.
movies.
Well,
Yep.
he's the son of Lawrence Kasdan.
Yeah,
who is-
Nepo baby.
Yeah.
I don't say Hollywood royalty, but he's a very good director, and I believe he did Body Heat, by the way, which I just watched. And it's like he deserves better because he also did Dewey Cox. If you guys have seen Walk Hard, Dewey Cox, and whatever,
Yeah.
maybe just not your thing. I thought it was hilarious. So I don't know. He at least has shown he has talent, but if he's doing the Jumanji movies, I'm like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be defending him.
Well, like I was saying here, obviously The Rock keeps it, close to the family when it comes to, the projects that he works on. And let's be honest, it's probably the reason why, he was allowed to be several hours late during multiple days of filming, because who was really going to call him out? Who was really going to sit there and be like, damn it, The Rock needs to be here. We're already millions of dollars behind and months. Like, no one was going to do that if they're The Rock's buddy. So it's like they would just, okay, well, we'll just film around you for a few months. And it's like, hey, just remember, everyone's getting paid. So that's all we need to know here. Let's talk about some of the supporting characters here, because a few of these were like embarrassing. Nick Kroll is in the movie, and when they initially like rolled him out, I didn't really mind like kind of like his swarmy character role, because he's basically supposed to be like the middleman. And then there's like this whole bit where he's being possessed by the witch character, and it's like she's speaking through him, but they're not doing the thing like when someone's possessed. It's like you hear the character who's possessing them through the body of the person being possessed. It's like it's him doing an impersonation of the witch being possessed, and it was like bad. Like that was, I was saying it was at a decent pace until we got to this scene. Then it just felt like everything came to a screeching halt there in this fight.
It was a bit cringe, where like you weren't sure if this was supposed to be funny or we're supposed to be scared.
That's where I would have walked out if I could have, by the way.
Yeah, I wouldn't have blamed you, because that would have been the moment that I've been like, okay, like we're done here. Like
you would have.
This was worse than the episode of The League. Like this is how bad the comedy was in this one.
No, you would have missed the part where the ice cream truck comes out of the ocean to Feliz Navidad.
No, yeah, and then the snowmen come out. And apparently the only way to kill a snowman is just to pull the carrots off of their noses. That's all you have to do. So they came out of the ocean like they were omnipotent beings, and all of a sudden it's like, nope, just pluck the carrot out, and they're all fine. And it's like, sorry.
And here's the thing: once he's iced, he's frozen, and it's like, oh, it's going to take days to defrost him. Let's move on. Then why have him if he's going to be, we're told that he's supposed to be super important. He's the only one who can lead him to the witch. But once he's frozen, oh, well, no, let's go and try Krampus. It's like, decide. Keep him safe.
Lucy Liu is in this movie, and I just feel like you could have cut her completely out of this film. She really doesn't serve any purpose to this movie.
She's so over the top. All of her line readings are just so over the top, and I get it, it's supposed to be for comedic effect. But it's just like, okay, we get it. Like this is a fantasy mythological world, and we're making up this stuff through expositional dialogue. And
yeah, but I mean, she's supposed to be the head of, what is it, Mora, the Mythological Oversight and Restoration Authority. I actually took notes, and it's like, where did this organization come from? Like, it would have made more sense to have set that up somehow instead of just, oh, well, here you go. She's
like that they have literal trolls.
Yeah,
get literal. Haha.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they even look like internet trolls. Get it?
Comedy
even
gold.
Awkward.
But yeah, I think she was just there as, was it Basil exposition? She's just there to give plot. Like, okay, yeah. just
Yeah.
details. It's like, oh well, we need to go to Krampus. Now we need to look for this person, and that's it.
Oh, here's the name of the BS Accords that we made up because we have some kind of treaty with Krampus where we can't go after him and he can't go after us or some nonsense like that.
Yeah.
And then of course they got the girl who plays the waitress from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. You know, Charlie Day's real life wife was in this film too. Like I said, her whole subplot and the subplot with the kid, it literally only exists for him to be kidnapped in the movie so that we can justify the third act of the movie. That's the whole reason why this is going. Like they so lazily put this stuff together that it's almost like a thread. You just pull it and it yanks the entire thing down. And that's
So
how poorly put together this movie
basically, her whole character is that she got knocked up by Chris Evans.
is. Mm-hmm. Like
And
he's supposed. That's the other thing that I always love about characters like this. It's like it's always like, you know, the mother of like the child. He's like, oh yeah, my baby's daddy or ex-husband is such a deadbeat and a loser. He's just the worst person in the entire world. And it's like, and somehow he still knocked you up, huh?
no,
Is
but
that always a story that we're going here with
yeah,
this?
well, this is the interesting thing is that in the movie, Jack mentions, oh, he has a great father, stepfather, and he's a great guy, and I know I'm not a great guy, but we never see the stepfather. We never hear about him.
No.
The son that he has that he loves, Dylan, just disappears off that concert show because I guess he was angry, and that's enough to send him into the snow globe. And yeah, nobody seems to really notice that he just kind of disappeared into the ether. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, why was she there? I mean, I didn't really care that because yeah, if you notice, she's just always angry. She seems always angry, understandably perhaps, but why? I mean, they weren't married, from what I understand. They weren't married. They just had a
Of course
relationship,
not.
and he just came in and out. She obviously didn't know what his job was because it's like, oh, you were Dylan was so disappointed that you didn't show up. It's like, well, I'm somewhere else, and I can't tell you I'm in like a hidden part of Germany or something. So like, why was she there? Why was Dylan there? I mean, I know why, because they needed
Plot device.
yeah,
Yeah.
they
Nope.
needed to show how how he becomes a loving father or father figure, but it's like, why
I mean, he
doesn't
never actually become a loving father. He just, okay, I have to save my kid, like
yeah,
any father would do. So the fact that he did the bare minimum means that he redeemed himself as a character, which is just like, really, is like that
yeah,
all that it takes?
that just showing that he cares about his son is enough to break the curse and break out of the snow globes. What's the point of keeping all these people in the snow globes? I mean, she really wants to punish, as I wrote, she wants to punish everyone from killers to jaywalkers. That just seems a little excessive. Like, to
Well, like I
walk,
said, that goes into
Little
the
girl's
whole,
punishment, though.
yeah.
yeah, it just seems, I think, a little excessive.
Well,
I mean,
it just goes into kind of the nonsensical lore behind like these characters that are not, especially here in the United States. Like nobody knows who the Christmas witch is. Like nobody, like Krampus is like not a thing. Even though people tried to make him a thing over the last few years. Like these are like European, like pagan folklore that's popular over there. But like I said, this is another thing of not actually knowing who your audience is, because it's like no one's gonna get any of these references here in the United States. It's like these are not things that are well known or are well versed to American audiences, and this is who you're expecting to get a whole bunch of money off of. And it's like, how do you think this whole thing was going to end?
yeah, I mean, the Christmas witch, like, who is she? Like, really, we
Mm-hmm.
don't know. We don't. I guess she has like a centuries feud with Santa, but
You're dealing with a generation of people who still know, like like I said, the Santa Claus and like Jingle All the Way, like all these like old school style like 90s 2000 Christmas movie. If you want to go back to like the 80s of like a Christmas Story and like stuff like that, like those are the type of things that people know here. It's like, then when people show up to what is being billed as a Christmas movie and this is what they're seeing here, they're just like thinking to themselves, it's like, damn, did I take my kid to the wrong movie? Like that I end up buying a wrong time. I thought this was gonna be a family film, and it's like, nope, you just got suckered by
And
Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Yeah, and I'm not a traditionalist at all when it comes to Christmas movies. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like, I like movies, so of course there's definitely old ones I like, but like two of my favorite movies are pretty cynical Gen X movies. Like one's Scrooged with Bill Murray, the other is The Ref with Dennis Leary. And I mean, even the director went back and said he would have changed the ending to The Ref, where Dennis Leary gets arrested, but he gets away. That's the whole. And to me, like the whole thing about Christmas movies is like is forgiveness, and that's certainly an element of it. And I think that plays itself out in a lot of movies. I'm sure in a lot of like Hallmark movies, albeit I've never seen them, so maybe I shouldn't be talking about them. But
I'm so you
but
haven't missed
kind of
much.
those basic reductive, like forgiveness and blah blah blah. And they even say that in The Ref of just like it's like it's like what kind of message is that at Christmas? Like it's like you're a criminal and you just get to be let free. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
Hey, trust me. I mean, I've sat through Christmas with the Cranks, which was just
There's a lot of bad
unbearable
ones. Don't get me wrong, but
unbearable bad.
Christmas in Connecticut and White Christmas and Miracle on 34th Street, and I mean there are classic.
I'm pretty sure Hulk Hogan was Santa Claus in the movie once.
I'm sure
I think he
Christmas
was.
movies are another genre and industry to themselves.
Yeah. And then there was a Santa Claus the movie, and it happened on Fifth Avenue, and of course Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, which is a personal favorite.
I like Silent Night, Deadly Night, which of course Terrifier 3, kind of.
Yeah, I saw that recently, and that's going to be reviewed like later.
Yeah. Also, Thanksgiving, which is a terrible movie, but I love it. Where a hand puppet is killing everybody. It's a turkey.
But see, but that's the thing though. It's like those movies, going in like exactly like what it's gonna be about. Like they don't try to be like subversive in like any way, shape, or form. Like they tell you straight out what type of movie it's gonna be. This one felt like, at least marketing wise, was far more subversive to what the true context of the movie actually was versus what they were advertising in like the trailers and like the TV spots and stuff like that. Like I said, I think a lot of people were probably the reason why this one got such a negative reaction, not just because of the fact it's a terrible movie, because it was not the movie that they thought it was based on the advertisements, right? And then this kind of leads us to our final act here, where basically this is where all the money and the budget went. And it's like, hey, we got $250 million. Let's just do this big superhero looking final boss battle towards like the very, very end here. So the witch lady tries to take off with Santa Claus because her entire plan up to this point is that she wants to trap all the naughty kids, anyone who's ever been naughty ever, which is literally everyone, is going to be trapped in the snow globe for the rest of their lives. So trapped forever. That's kind of her whole plan here. So they have to like stop her from using Santa Claus's power to deliver these snow globes that's going to kidnap everyone. They end up stopping her initially, and then I guess she transforms into her final form, which is like a giant ogre witch thing. And then it's literally The Rock and Krampus teaming up to fight, this giant like 30-foot like witch thing towards the end. And this is like literally like the film. And at this point, I was just kind of like sitting here and it's like, dude, what the hell is even this movie like anymore? Like, how do I even describe this to people in a way that makes any kind of sense whatsoever? And it's like, well, apparently they didn't make any effort to do so why should I try, right?
Yeah, and then of course we needed to know that she's a shapeshifter, which is how they got Partridge trapped in there, and nobody seems to notice because
so here was the big twist. Before you get into that, the big twist was that they thought that they had kidnapped Santa Claus. Turns out he never actually left the North Pole. They just used shapeshifters to make it seem like that they had left the North Pole when really they were like somewhere in the basement the entire time. So they were like going all around the world looking for this guy he had never ever actually left.
Now
I always say just maybe to be a bit of a contrarian, but screenwriters are overrated. When you don't have one, they're really it's very noticeable. And again, I didn't even look at this, how many screenwriters this one had. Maybe it was just the one person.
I think just one. I think it's just one.
That's terrible. I mean, that speaks to what Jacob was saying, was that this was basically, that they bought their friend's script idea. That The Rock basically just, hey, we're doing this.
That's what I said. I mean, I've said that it was just a concept but it wasn't an actual screenplay. It was just a concept.
Like a
Santa gets
spec script.
abducted.
This is like a
Yes.
spec script idea. Just like,
Yes.
hey, this sounds good. Let's do this.
Mm-hmm. Like honestly, like what this really was, this is a cash grab. Like I hate to sound like cynical, but let's be fair, this is a cash grab for everyone involved. This was just another avenue for The Rock to put like another $50 million in his pocket, for Chris Evans to make a decent payday, and J.K. Simmons. It's like they basically threw this whole thing together so they can get a lot of money out of Jeff Bezos, because Jeff Bezos has so much money, he clearly doesn't care about where he's putting it to at this point. So this is all this movie is. Like, this is a cash grab masquerading as a Christmas movie, even though technically it's not a Christmas movie. It's supposed to be an action comedy, but even as an action comedy, this still fails because it's not funny and there's not that much action in the movie to even justify that aspect. I mean, you're not seeing like The Rock laying the smackdown on people like the way that you would see him in other action movies. You don't get that at all. Chris Evans isn't fighting people like Captain America, so that's all out of the thing. So it's like, on what level does this film truly work? That's kind of my question. Have you guys found an answer to that? Because I haven't.
If you find it entertaining in a mindless way where you don't ask any questions, I think, and you have the attention span of a 5-year-old, I think it's possible. Outside of that, I don't know. However, I will say the people around me, to my annoyance, were laughing at the jokes and stuff. So whatever. I
had the same.
Or anybody that I would consider recommending it to that likes movies.
No, I had the same reaction. I mean, there were people like when they're driving through Aruba, I didn't know that there was laughter from the audience before they started singing Kokomo, and I also did have one person when they're trapped in Krampus's castle, and Rock says that he was one day short of retirement. The person next to me said, "Always, like always, or always one day short of retirement." Like, it's such a cliche to have that. Like,
I was kind of expecting him to say, "I wasn't even supposed to show up today."
or no, I was expecting him to say, "I'm too old for this."
Mm-hmm. I will say though, real quick, one of my favorite movies has that cliche in it, and it's Falling Down, or Robert Duvall's on his like last day.
Oh yeah.
And, like, the entire movie, he's like, everybody thinks he's like, pussy whipped by his wife or whatever, and he's the one that literally, ends Michael Douglas's reign of terror at the end of the movie. So
yeah, but that's Robert Duvall, who
no, exactly, of course, has pathos and is a phenomenal actor. Literally probably one of the greatest actors to ever do it.
But yeah, I mean, no, I don't think this movie would be entertaining for a 5-year-old, because I think 5-year-olds wouldn't, they shouldn't be they shouldn't be watching a movie that has questionable language and kind of really awful characters. I don't think this again. You're right, Jacob. This was sold, I think, as some sort of family film. And maybe they had tapered down on it. And I kept wondering, why didn't they just make the Chris Evans character, instead of kind of this crabby guy that literally steals candy from a baby? I rolled my eyes at that. Why?
I was gonna say this just real quick with that whole bit with him stealing. Like, they teased it on the first scene, and I was like, okay, just tease it. Don't actually do it. Just tease it and move on, right? Then he comes back out, and the baby's still there. It's like, oh my god, they're actually gonna do it. And then, yep, taking candy from a baby. And I was like, you guys don't know what you're doing. Like, you guys do not know. Like, you don't understand comedy. You don't understand timing. Like, you guys just don't get it, like, at all. Like, you didn't have to actually have him steal candy for a baby. It's like when they saw the scene and they saw him walk there, they got it right there. That's all you had to do.
I really hope, I hope, I know the movie's bad no matter what, but I really hope that got added in there by studio notes. I really hope that studio executives watched that and said, hey, so because audiences are stupid, let's make it really obvious.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so many bad decisions.
Yeah.
And then not even having the foundation to sort of like build a good movie off of. This was just a terrible idea from day one. And
Because it
it's
was an
just kind of
idea.
slowly
That's all.
dying
Yeah,
the
that's
longer
all
it
it
goes on.
was. That's all it was. It was just an idea that was put up on the screen and said, write something to go along with it. They didn't actually have a script. If they, I mean, yes, technically they did, but there was nothing there. There was just the concept. Like, oh, let's kidnap Santa. If they had, I thought, okay, maybe if somebody had actually threatened Santa, or if they had some kind of invasion or something, I don't know. But there's nothing here. There's nothing here that I cared about. I mean, it didn't start
I,
out bad. It didn't start out bad because I like that part where he like needs to recharge, so he goes to a mall. Of course, it has to be
mhm.
Philadelphia. I'm not exactly sure why Philadelphia, but
Brotherly love.
Was it King
no,
of Prussia? Is that why?
I don't know. But he said that it's 2 days. It's 2 days away, and he needed to. He felt energized by going to Philadelphia.
Sure,
Okay.
because we're still trying to pretend like Philadelphia isn't a complete shithole too. So I mean, that's probably why we're still doing this. Look, what was the best way to summarize this movie? I absolutely despise the term "turn your brain off and enjoy" because I think that's really just insulting to a viewer on a fundamental level. But really, the only way you can actually enjoy this movie is that you just have to accept it as completely dumb, mindless entertainment, and don't seriously think about anything that this film presents to you. If you have if you're the type of person who can remove your brain from your skull, then toss it out of the room, this is probably be a good film for you. For anyone else out there, this is just a generic cash grab. It's not terrible in the sense that like we've seen worse movies. Let's put it this way: this isn't like I Saw the TV Glow or Argyle or something like that. Like there's way worse movies out there, but it's just so generic. It's just more insulting than it is like terrible. That makes any sense to you? My final thought is that this is probably a 2 out of 5 if I'm being completely generous, but I'm just thinking to myself, out of all the target people who would probably be interested or wanted to see this movie, I don't think there's anything for you here. If you're a family thinking that, oh, you can go watch this movie, I wouldn't waste my time with this one. And to be completely honest with you, I probably wouldn't waste my time with the Wicked movie that comes out next week either. I think you guys are just kind of shit out of luck. Maybe just watch some Hallmark movies this year. It seems to be the only place you can get legitimate
Well,
Christmas
I
movies
don't
in
I
2020.
don't know. I mean, the Christmas Hallmark movie that I saw was about the guy falling in love with the other guy, the holiday sitter. So yeah, that one is their first LGBTQ Christmas romance. So that's a
Mhm.
Christmas movie. I ended up calling it a Christmas movie. Take that for what you will.
Yeah, like I said, I think as fair as I can give this movie is like a 2 out of 5, and maybe I'm being a little bit generous here. I can certainly justify going lower, but that's about as much as I can give this movie at this point. The Rock, this isn't going to help The Rock. This isn't going to help Chris Evans in their careers at this point. Everyone else is just here for the paycheck. In all honesty, you're better off just waiting 3 weeks till this is on Amazon Prime, because once this movie completely bombs at the box office, it'll be on Amazon Prime in 3 weeks. They'll recoup their costs. So that's all I really have to say here. Rob, what's your final thoughts on this movie and final rating?
Yeah, no interest in seeing this movie. I mean, I remember seeing like the previews for it. I was like, that just looks like a giant dumpster fire, and that's exactly what it was. So, um, I don't know. Look, obviously everybody it's movies are subjective. The fun part is to act like they're not. As a critic, it's basically like, well, no, it's just a terrible movie. I don't care what your opinion is, but it's just I can't understand who this would appeal to. I don't know who it's for. It seems like the kind of thing that is recycled by a dying industry, that's just trying to eke out a profit and failing miserably to even do that, to even give audiences what they want, what they've told you time and again they're looking for. So, um, this is is an empty movie, and trying to find small pleasures where you can, I guess, is the best thing you can do. I opened my review or a little mini review on Twitter saying this is not a terrible movie, but I think I just wrote that too soon. Uh, but yeah, I landed at 1.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, that's me just as being as fair and as honest as possible. I guess I could have gone lower, but there's just very little here to kind of chew on or to enjoy. And I don't even think it does a good job being a Christmas movie and celebrating the spirit of Christmas. So just another misfire from Hollywood. Hopefully we'll get some, decent movies here as the year ends, but it's been a rough year all told.
Well, Rick, what do you got?
Well, actually, I'm kind of with you, Jacob. I would probably give it a 2. I think I did give it a 2 out of 5. This is certainly not the worst movie I've seen. It's one of the emptier ones that I've seen. It really doesn't have a heart. It doesn't have anything that says, "Oh, we're appealing to families," or "This is about the children," or anything that's fantastical or fun. It's just there. There's nothing here. But I think, right now we're seeing where some of that money went. I'm assuming it went to the makeup work, which I thought was actually pretty good. We're to try to find qualities, and probably to the special effects, which weren't all that special, but they were there. But it's not terrible. It's not the worst film I've seen by any stretch, but it's not something that I think people are going to watch around Christmas. It's going to be one of those films that exists, that it's tied to Christmas, but I don't see anyone going to this movie and watching it around Christmas time. I really do think maybe they'd watch Santa Claus Conquers the Martians better than they would watch this. So yeah, it's a 2 out of 5. It's not good. It's just there. So it's like, eh.
Yeah, like I said, it's weird because, like I said, it's not bad quality wise as I've seen from other films, but in a lot of ways, it's just more insulting, like as a movie. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like the whole premise of this whole thing just feels like a giant, massive waste of time and energy. This is exactly what this film is at the end of the day. So, yeah, that's this movie. Two things that I want to address here before we actually wrap things up. So we're gonna be back here for the next couple of weeks. So we will be back to consistent movie reviews at least for the next 2 weeks. Next week, here's what we're gonna do because there's 2 movies that are coming out. So I'm gonna give you guys assignments here. Rick, I'm gonna send you to go watch Wicked, and then Rob, I'm gonna send you to go watch Gladiator 2. And then somehow I'm gonna go try to watch both of these movies before Friday. No guarantee about which one I'm gonna be watching first. And to be completely honest with you, I'm not entirely hyped about either one. So this is gonna be a complete crapshoot to me. But those will be the 2 movies that we review next weekend. It'll be Wicked and Gladiator 2. And then here's another thing I just wanted to bring out. As you saw, our buddy Culture Casino was here very, very early on in the show. Earlier tonight. He was expecting us to go over this Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight that's happening right now. All I can say about that is that apparently the streaming capabilities of Netflix is so terrible. The number one trend on Twitter right now is cancel Netflix and stream East. That's how bad this thing's being held. Keep in mind, this whole thing was basically used as a test to see how Netflix can handle a massive amount of live streaming, because guess what? They paid the WWE $5 billion to come to their streaming network. That starts in January. So they have literally about 6 weeks to figure out how to get live streaming capabilities working consistently, or this whole thing is going to be a complete and utter disaster. So that's all I have to say here. Yeah, literally Stream East is trending on Twitter right now. That's how bad the stream is for those trying to watch the Jake Paul fight.
Yeah, I mean, they could really try just getting on Mexican stations. They're pretty good about showing things a little delayed.
That's even worse. By the way, Spencer just reminded me. I didn't even remember that Wicked is actually a musical. It's like that
Yes.
just feels like.
Yes, it was on Broadway for years. That's why it got made into a movie. It was a highly profitable, my mom is a huge fan, by the way, of the show. So guess what I'll be watching next week, regardless if you assigned it or not. So yeah. So,
Mhm.
and this is one of those things that never translated for me. Like I've always thought musicals are a really stupid way of communicating stories. But I'm not like there's Sondheim songs I like. There's different. I just as a whole, I don't want to spend hours watching people sing. You know, it is a form of storytelling. It's just to me, it doesn't. It's just dumb. But to other people, like dramatic theater is dumb, and I like that. So it's all about kind of like what you like. But um, so we'll see. Cynthia Erivo or whatever hell her name
Erivo.
is. He
Yeah.
keeps trying to sing this movie because she's so focused on race, and it's like, lady, this story has nothing to do with race. Really, it's a retconned fan fiction version of the Wizard of Oz, where you take the villain and make them, kind of an anti-hero, I guess, or
Yes, that is the whole point.
that the wizard is really the corruptible like influence, and he turned everybody against the witch and all this shit, and it's like, okay, that sounds like something a sociopath would craft about, why why
Well, the
their
thing
villain
is,
story is justified.
I think it was based on a novel.
Yes, by
They
Gregory
wrote a novel,
Maguire.
and then they wrote the musical, and
Yeah.
then they came up with the film version. So yeah, I mean, I'm watching it just so I could complete my Wizard of Oz retrospective, because I've been watching so many Wizard of Oz related projects. Might as well just finish it out with this. So, but no, this is a musical. What really surprised me was that Emilia Perez, the one about the transgender
Oh,
drug lord,
jeez.
that's a
Oh,
musical.
God.
That's on
That
Netflix too. So
movie
if
is
you can't watch the fight, go and watch that instead.
that movie. I haven't even watched it yet, and it's already like I already know it's going to be just a massive piece of shit dumpster fire, ridiculous, over the top, nonsensical, melodramatic screed of
So is that
missuccess.
different from the Emily Perez movie that's also getting all the hype for Oscar
That's
No,
what
no, no.
that
buzz?
movie is.
It's the same
That's
one.
what that
Okay. Okay.
Yes, it's a musical. That surprised me.
Selena
That is a
Gomez is
musical.
apparently in it too, and it's just like, okay.
Yeah, Zoe
See,
Saldana.
this is
And
why I'm going to be
yes, I
pushing
have.
super hard for the substance, because as many as even if that movie had problems, especially at the end, it's so much better than this like self-important garbage that they're pushing out. So it's just like I will celebrate that movie for being as ugly and mean and nasty and hilarious as it was. So
And then
Yeah,
another thing, just real quick, we'll probably talk a little bit about this more on the barroom next week. But if you guys recall, Rachel Zegler, her literal box office poison, attacked Trump supporters right after the election. She's now been forced to apologize. And I'm saying she's been forced to apologize because she didn't apologize on her own intuition there. And literally the day after her apology, it got reported that the official budget for the Snow White movie, which is coming out in a few months, is $270 million. So I can't even focus like on the tweet and the dumb things that she says. Somebody at what was it? I think is Universal who's in charge of this movie. One of those major studios that's in charge of this. Somebody decided that they were going to invest a nearly $300 million production budget on someone who is quite literally proven to be box office poison in her entire career. It's like I don't know who's making it seems like the dumbest people in the world are making financial decisions for the studios, and here's where we are right now. It's like I'm gonna be honest with you. Part of the reason why we're gonna kind of wrapping up the show here in a few weeks is because, in all honesty, there isn't really that many movies, at least from this side of the pond, that really inspire any of us to go out here and do this consistently without watching like these god awful films. Like it's only so often we get like a Substance or The Bike Riders or like You Monster or Kill or something like that. Like it only seems to happen maybe once or twice every few months, and then we just get like shoveled so much crap. It's like this is why this business is in the position that it is. And who knows, with Trump being reelected here and him possibly being back in the White House in the next few months, you think to yourself, is this going to get any better, or is this only going to get significantly worse once they start putting out, oh, we need to start doing more Trump is bad movies? It's like, do we really need to? Is this the future that we're looking at?
they
Real quick
already
before we
did
wrap things.
that. They already did that with The Apprentice.
Yeah, and then they're gonna keep doing it. It just seems like they just don't know how to learn the lesson, and it's just kind of a sad state of affairs. I mean, I was talking to Christian Toto not too long ago. He straight up said that he's having a very difficult time finding 5 movies that he thinks are worthy of being on a top 5 best movie list of the entire year, and we're coming up on that time very quickly. And it's like if he's struggling to find 5, and I've talked to guys like Chris Gore and Alan Moore from was like Film Threat too, and it's like everyone's kind of feeling the same sentiment right now. It's like we're not in a good place as far as cinema goes, and it doesn't seem like we're gonna get any better in the near future.
I've been here for a decade, so thank you everybody for joining the party. To be fair, I took my note cue from Brett Easton Ellis, who's very snobby and picky, and he had some years like 20, I don't know, like 2015, 2016. There were some years where he had like 3 movies on his list, and like some, and I reached a point where I would put stuff like Paul Schrader's Dog Eat Dog, which is it's described as a transgressive crime film. It's so ridiculously over the top. It's a Nicolas Cage, Willem Dafoe crime movie, and it's insane. I mean, that's where people are going now, where it's like I don't know if you guys saw that movie Arkansas with Vince Vaughn and whatever, and one of the I think it was Liam Hemsworth. Really good crime film. Almost nobody saw it, but it was in my top 2, top 3 of the year. It came out, I think it was like 2020 or something. But those 2 years, 2020, 2021, even 2022 were terrible. And I know those were COVID years. I know that, but Hollywood isn't gonna, I mean, not that they were doing great before, but they're not coming back from that. I really think it's been going downhill the last decade. And again, I love movies. I will always look for new stuff to watch and review, just because I believe in them, but it's diminishing returns at this point. It's not even, it's funny. Peter Bart, the writer for, I think he wrote for Variety, but he was also a producer for Paramount in the 70s. He shit talked the 90s so bad. It was like they were terrible and all this stuff. And it's like, look, you can say that, I guess, if you worked, 2 decades prior. The 90s were so much better than what we're going through right now. And I realized that was 30 years ago. I realized it's basically a long time ago, but you lament that not being around anymore, where it just, I don't know if it's globalism. I don't know if it's just the media companies kind of, becoming conglomerates, and, there's less and less competition because of it, but that seems to be the case.
Well, I've been fortunate that I have found a few that I can't put on my at least 5 best. I don't know if I can make a full 10, but a couple of them have been documentaries, so I don't know. And then
Oh, come on, those aren't movies.
and then there was one that technically was made, I think, made and released in like Europe in 2020, 2021,
Yeah.
but it's barely coming here in 2024. So I think I can sneak that in. I thought it was really good. And of course, there's my beloved Dune, and I'm the only one who seems to like it. But I can find many. I keep shifting my worst list. It's like, oh, how can I leave this off? How could I leave that off? So I'm constantly shifting my worst list. And that's considering I saw the TV Glow. I didn't see Drive Away Dolls. I didn't see I'm trying to think of the other ones that Babes. I didn't see Babes. So it was like I've seen
You
others.
saw Joker too, though.
I did see Joker 2, Folie de. So yeah, that one managed to. No, actually, there have been about 3 films that have managed to push Argyle
The
out.
Crow. The Crow is terrible, and we're not even talking about it anymore.
No,
Bro, The Crow is not even on my honorable mentions this year. That's how bad this year has been.
No, that one I have found. Deadpool and Wolverine I thought was worse. Joker was worse. Venom was the one that I finally gave up and said, you know what? Yeah, I would sooner watch Argyle.
Venom's on my top 10 so far. It's on the back end, but it's there.
No, it's certainly there. And then I had to fight to get the Fall Guy on my worst list. I had to fight to get Frozen Empire on my worst list. So I was like, I'm like, I can't leave this out. But for the 10 best, Yeah, I might be able to whip up 5, but again, a couple of them are documentaries. So yes, I actually think they were better. I think I've given 2 10s, or 2 5s in film this year, and one of them was like a film literally made in like 2021 that barely came here this year, and I found it through a screener. But
Yeah.
remember, we would soon
Well,
people would sooner watch this movie, the red one, than apparently Juror number 2.
Oh, I can't wait to see that because I keep hearing it's really good.
yeah, I haven't seen it yet either. So I know like that movie, it's on my. So I got like at least 8 movies on my catch up list before the year is up. So I got to start like chipping away at some of those. One of those that Jesse Eisenberg and was it Rory Culkin movie that's out right now. I don't remember the
Kieran,
exact name of it.
Kieran Culkin.
Sasquatch thing. Oh my!
No, no,
If
no,
you're
no, no,
talking about
No,
not
no,
the
no,
no,
no.
no, no, no.
okay,
I know which one you're talking about.
oh, with the 2 friends go on some kind of a road trip,
No, they're
Yeah,
cousins.
cousins.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm sorry, I'm not super up on it, but yeah,
A Real Pain. That's what it is.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the name. Yeah, I want to watch that one tomorrow. It looks interesting. I just hope that it actually holds up.
But it's
But
Jesse Eisenberg is gonna play Jesse Eisenberg. That's the thing. Even the trailers like show he's
But Kieran Culkin will play Kieran Culkin, and he's at least entertaining. I've only
yeah,
seen him in 2 things, like which is Succession and Igby Goes Down, but I do like him.
yeah, but no, I can't. I struggle watching Jesse Eisenberg because he's always the same. And
well, I
but
mean,
there's
once
always
he's following someone's direction who's far better than him, then yeah,
and
maybe
then
I
there,
can.
yeah, don't forget there's Honora about the Russian oligarch in his shotgun wedding with a hooker.
Yeah,
So apparently
Mhm.
that's supposed to be
and
great too.
well, that's
And don't
Sean
forget
Baker.
to
And Sean Baker at least has a track record of being a very good indie director. And listen, this is the thing with him. He loves prostitutes and whores. Because 3 or 4 of his movies, the main character is a prostitute or, some kind of sex worker or something. But there's a very humanistic kind of vision to his movies. I mean, the Florida Project, the girl's mother is like a I mean, she's just a scummy person, is what she is. But you know what I mean. Like that movie's heartbreaking too, and but yeah, it's definitely not for. I wouldn't call it movies for the conservative crowd. Certainly, I mean, Red Rocket. Red Rocket is literally about Simon Rex trying to exploit this girl for the porn industry and him failing. Because he's a giant fucking loser. So, anyway, and what Honora won the Palme d'Or, or
yeah.
did it? Or
I
did Mikey
well
Madison in Best Actress? I forget which one.
I don't know, but there's that one that's popular, and then I forgot. Don't forget Conclave about the
I
hermaphrodite pope,
I have heard
which
so many mixed things about that movie because my friend Liam, who's from the UK and obviously he's to the left of a lot of us,
Yeah, well, that
said it
makes
was
sense.
good.
Of course it
And
is.
and there's other people who've been like it's blasphemous, and it's like I'm like okay,
well, I'm not. I mean, I'm not Catholic, so I can't judge
yeah,
a
I'm not.
class. But I can say that I found it very pretentious,
Hmm.
and I will
Yeah,
laugh. I will laugh my head off if Isabella Rossellini does get a nomination for that. It was like it
yeah,
wasn't a bad performance,
I
but it
did
was
a
like,
review. I did a review for that on the Bible Lens like 2 weeks ago. I'll say this: it's cinematically a well shot film, probably one of the best shot films of the entire year. So if you're just looking at costume design, color, camera, like that type of stuff, you're in the more technical aspects of filmmaking. It's probably one of the better films of the year. Story wise, it's one of the dumbest films that I've seen all year long. So it's one of those where you kind of got balance, like
you,
which way you weigh more in.
you don't believe in hermaphrodite pope?
Yeah, and sorry, he's intersex. That's the term for it now. It's like, yeah. So
Okay.
this hermaphrodite pope makes literally one speech towards the very very end of the film, and all of a sudden unanimously gets elected to become the new pope. And then only after the fact that they realize, oh no, this person has ovaries. How do we miss this? Oh no. It's like
Yeah.
literally like one of those like old like offensively bad Mexican like comedies that you used to see on like Telemundo back in the day before Sábado Gigante.
Trying to remember them. I used to. I probably would have watched those. I will say that I agree with you. The recreation of the Sistine Chapel is so spot on that it's like it could conceivably pass as the real Sistine Chapel. So yeah, I give it credit where credit is due, but Yeah, that thing at the end where it's like, oh, I have male and female organs, and I'm going to be, the Pope. It made me think of Saint Joan. The story of Pope Joan, which is a myth. But yeah, look it up,
Well,
guys.
the entire papacy is a myth, so that's a good way to start.
And,
But
and I'd have to see how the story obviously flows and how it develops and everything, but it just seems it seems weird. It seems obviously I'm not talking about the obvious stuff, but the idea that you would have an individual that wants to be, it's like they want to be above the rules. They want to be above the hierarchy and the system and all this stuff. It's like, well, I am so special that there's never been one of me that's been the Pope. And it's like, okay, but like that's not a good thing. Like that's an aberration. That's an abnormal occurrence. You know what I mean? And you had to contrive that to create this movie's plot and story. You know what I mean? It just seems like you're trying too hard to fit a square peg through a round hole.
Well,
You
it
know,
was
where,
based on a novel, and I think it was
well,
Thomas Harris, the same man who wrote Silence
Silence
of
of
the
the
Lambs.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
well,
And
it
obviously
is what it is.
adaptations are different than their source material, and so I mean, I don't know,
Yeah. Well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up right here. I think the boxing fight's probably gonna start happening now, even though no one can actually watch it because Netflix is down. So it's a
fine.
massive shit show.
But I'm subscribed to Netflix, so that's probably what it is.
Yeah. So, let's go ahead and give you guys time to shine and promote what you got coming up. We'll start here at Rob.
Yeah, so I got 3 reviews out this past week, and then I abruptly stopped. So that's me and my track record. But I am trying to get my review of Civil War out as well as Challengers. So one I really liked, one I really didn't. So just look forward to those probably next week on my Twitter. And then I'm also in the middle of Noirvember, so I'm just basically going through every possible film noir I can think of. I made a big list here on my Twitter, which I can pin just to kind of keep track of it. But yep, if you guys have any recommendations, that'd be awesome. But yeah, we're halfway through the month now, and definitely looking forward to getting to some of the better movies in my list. So that's pretty much it. Have a good week. Bye.
All right, Rick.
Yeah, I'm coming close to wrapping up my Wizard of Oz retrospective. I just published the Muppets Wizard of Oz, and all I've got coming up for that is besides Wicked, I also have the VeggieTales Wizard of Oz. I'm sorry, and I'm waiting for Lynch Oz, which connects Wizard of Oz with David Lynch, which should be interesting. And yeah, just catching up also on more reviews of films that I've seen. I have Red One coming up. But that's not going to be my annual Christmas review, or a movie I review every Christmas day. I also have a review of a couple movies that I have seen through screeners. The documentary Frida, and one that's called Nowhere Special. That's the one from the 2020. And I also published the review for I Am Celine Dion, which I probably did not like as much as most people did, but I still would recommend it, if only to show a different side to the chanteuse that I'm not fond of, except for 2 songs. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Thank you. Trying to find a movie, trying to find a time to watch Wicked and Gladiator 2, because I do have a stove being delivered this Friday. So
That
that's
sounds
it.
terrible.
Well, after 22 years, I think I should have bought a stove.
Well, letting you guys know what I got coming up. So I don't know if I'm going to be streaming with anyone here in the next few minutes because it's getting pretty late here. We'll figure something out, but I'll be back here on Sunday. We'll be doing the Bible lens. We'll be talking about Trump and the Roman Catholic Church and Mystery Babylon and all that good stuff in the heels of Trump's victory. Tuesday, we have the next episode of The Ballroom coming up. We'll be talking about some big topics in entertainment. Like I said, next Friday, we will be back here again. We'll be discussing Gladiator 2 and Wicked, which just seems like I can't wait to get next week over with because this is probably the worst week of movies to look forward to that I've had all year long, and that's saying a lot. But that's all I got coming up at the moment. Working on getting some things scored around. And keep in mind, the last week of this month, we'll be doing the best movies of the year for episode 99, and 100 will just be trashing all the shitty movies that we saw, with episode 100 the worst movies of the year. But until then, we still got a few more movies to catch up on, so we'll keep doing this one. And then, like I said, even next year, 2025, we'll occasionally review movies over on the bar room, but we'll be a lot more selective with what we watch. We'll try to do a less, groan inducing, painstakingly, I just wasted 2 hours of my life that I'll never ever get back movies, and actually try to find something good, and hopefully that will save all of our mental health. Until then, I want to thank you guys for joining us. I want to thank Culture for his cameo on today's show. He's not getting the credit. Give a shout out to Rob, obviously Rick, and everyone else who joined us here tonight. But it's time for us to sign off. Adios, goodbye, and good night.